Saddam Hussein was a pretty bad guy who ruled Iraq with an iron fist and full of purges and terror from 1979 until being deposed in 2003. Upon taking office as president in 1979, Saddam immediately purged rivals from within his party. In 1980, he ordered the invasion of Iran. In 1988, as the war with Iran ended in a stalemate, he ordered the Al-Anfal campaign against the Kurds, who had sided with Iran, and chemically bombed them. Later, he invaded Kuwait in 1990, which ultimately led to the Gulf War in 1991, which ended in Iraq's massive defeat, a bunch of sanctions in the 90s which destroyed the country, and then of course came the 2003 invasion and following conflicts. But what if none of that happened? What if in an alternate timeline, Saddam Hussein never ruled Iraq to begin with? First, we need some context for his rise to power. Saddam had joined the Ba'ath Party in its infancy during the 1950s and was a strong opponent of Abd al-Karim Qasim's revolutionary government, which had seized power in Iraq in 1958, and he participated in a failed 1959 assassination attempt on the president. But like I said, he was an early Ba'athist, so a few years of violent political conflict in Iraq later, in 1966, Saddam was deputy secretary of the regional command and created a Ba'athist security service, which he alone controlled. In July 1968, Saddam participated in a bloodless coup led by Ahmed Hassan al-Bakr that overthrew the sitting Nasserist president, and Saddam became al-Bakr's deputy. By 1976, Saddam rose to the position of general within the Iraqi armed forces and rapidly became the strongman of the government. As the ailing, elderly al-Bakr became unable to execute his duties, Saddam took an increasingly prominent role as the face of the government both internally and externally. Saddam was the de facto leader of Iraq some years before he formally came to power in 1979. But still in 1979, al-Bakr started to make treaties with Syria, which was also under Ba'athist leadership, that would hopefully, in his mind, lead to unification between the two countries, and Syrian President Hafez al-Assad would become deputy leader within the Union, which would drive Saddam into obscurity. However, Saddam Hussein acted to secure his grip on power by forcing the ailing al-Bakr to resign in July of 1979, and he formally assumed the presidency, and of course would tear up any ideas of the Syrian-Iraqi unity. Changes to occur in an alternate timeline so that Saddam Hussein doesn't rule Iraq lies within the 1968 coup. See, in 1968, Abdul Razak Said al-Naif became the youngest prime minister in Iraq at the age of 34. He appointed the first and last inclusive cabinet within Iraq, which he called a coalition cabinet, and was the largest cabinet in Iraqi history, including representatives from all ethnic and religious members of the population, with several ministers appointed without portfolios. But 13 days after his appointment, he was deposed by Saddam, who allegedly took al-Naif out by gunpoint. If al-Bakr had protected al-Naif, or if Saddam didn't get extremely jealous, then al-Naif would be Iraq's prime minister during the Ba'athist era under al-Bakr throughout the 1970s. He was actually a very popular guy, with just about everyone in Iraq, as well as many other countries in the Middle East actually liking him. Domestically, he probably wouldn't do too much differently regarding economic policies, but he was strongly against the idea of making Iraq a totalitarian regime or having Saddam's personal security services. In our timeline in 1969, al-Naif secretly returned to northern Iraq and was welcomed back and protected by Barzani and the Kurds, as well as by the Iraqi troops who were sent to fight against the Kurdish militants, as he was a well-respected officer within the Iraqi military. With all of that in mind, in this alternate timeline, the Iraqi-Kurdish conflict will go very differently compared to our timeline. I'd say al-Naif could actually successfully negotiate an end to the Iraqi-Kurdish war by 1970 in a way so that the second war never happens. Al-Naif also enjoyed a good relationship with the Shah of Iran, Jordan's King Hussein, and Saudi Arabia's King Faisal bin Abdul Aziz. So in this alternate timeline, Iraq won't be having a hostile relationship with Iran. In our timeline, Saddam was also very hostile towards Iran due to disagreements about the Shat al-Arab waterway and Iran's support for the Kurds in the Second Iraqi-Kurdish War. In this timeline, none of that will really be happening, and al-Naif would probably be able to negotiate a solution with the Shah about the waterway. In 1979, let's say al-Naif officially leads Iraq, now after al-Bakr becomes too ill to lead. With that, how will al-Naif handle the situation between Syria and Iraq? Well, I'm not thinking that Iraq and Syria would actually be able to unify to create a greater Ba'athist Arab state, because Iraqi Baathism and Syrian Baathism were essentially polar opposites, and there really wasn't too much that could happen there. As far as the US-Iraqi relationship, al-Naif did not hesitate to express his opposition to communism and Soviet expansionism, and he was inspired by the American political system for his cabinet. He had read the biography of President John F. Kennedy in Arabic several times, and he was inspired by Kennedy's courage and revolutionary ideas in order for how he would run his government. He focused on Iraqi domestic issues and did not want to get involved in regional Arab issues outside the country. He also remained independent of a lot of political rivalries when he was forming his cabinet, as he, again, wanted his cabinet to be a vision that John F. Kennedy would have liked. I feel like al-Naif's Iraqi government would attempt to aid the Shah's government during the Iranian Revolution. However, I feel like any attempt would be futile. So Iraq will begin to militarize its borders to protect itself from being on the receiving end of a potential spread of the Iranian Revolution. Many other Middle Eastern countries, as well as the US and Great Britain, will also aid Iraq in its efforts to contain the revolution without an invasion. With that, the 1980s for Iraq will see a continuation of what's considered Iraq's golden age of the 1970s. The Kurds will also be semi-autonomous in the north, and probably would be supporting the Iranian Kurds who are rebelling during the Iranian Revolution. Al-Naif's government might also get involved in this by aiding Iranian Kurds and pro-Shah rebel elements in Khuzestan. Iraq also has a militarized border, but for the most part, things are going to be going pretty well as people's lives are improving and doing really well from a booming economy. Iraq is also a key international partner to the NATO camp in the Cold War, as well as to anti-revolutionary Middle Eastern countries. Iraq would probably still get involved in the Lebanese civil war and have some kind of proxy conflict with Syria, again because Syrian and Iraqi Baathists hate each other. Iraq could also target Hezbollah in Lebanon in order to further target proxies from the Iranian Revolution and support the United States. As far as beyond the 1980s and moving to the 1990s in Iraq, I think things are going to be pretty well. You see, the Kurds haven't been chemically bombed in this timeline, and many pretty nasty figures from Saddam's cabinet, such as Izzat Ibrahim al-Duri, aren't in power to do pretty nasty things. Additionally, there hasn't been a decade-long war to devastate Iraq, and the country hasn't had a heavy debt, so there's no reason to invade Kuwait. I'm inclined to say things are gonna go pretty well in Iraq, but who knows? Iran could always invade Iraq, or something that can't be predicted can always happen. That's just one possible scenario. What do you think would have happened had Saddam Hussein never ruled Iraq? Write in the comments, and thank you for watching.